Morning, this is Matterall. It is November 26, 2019, and this is Today in EVE Online. All right, we're off to the races. First thing that we want to look into is Ushra'Khan. He is 15 years old. That's a corporation, actually alliance, maybe Alliance Corporation that is primarily, maybe exclusively Minmatar based. And they started in 2004. And they have been the enemy of the Amarians, specifically CVA, who is the player organization that supports the Minmatar enemies, which is Amarians. So on one side, you've always had CVA. It's a Latin term, I think. Curious Vitas something. And on the other side, you've had Ushra'Khan. And Ushra'Khan always had a really great logo with a fist in the air, kind of like I am Spartacus. So those guys are 15. That's pretty amazing for a corporation to survive. Let's have a look here at what they say. The story begins early in 2003 with the creation of corps like SMAK Enterprises, Oracle, and People's Front of Minmatar, later merging in June of 2004 into Masuata Matari. I'm doing my best. These are all fictional names. So, and you also have freelance unincorporated, later mutated into Mirkur. I'm not even going to try that one. Drogtier. And you have Matir Backbone and many others. So you can see there's, okay, I'm not reading anymore, but you can already see that there is corporations that are named in the Minmatar style. For those that don't know, maybe we should back up. Minmatar is kind of the Klingons of EVE Online. So you're able to, their background is more tribal and rustic, I guess. They're more, their ships are fast and do nuclear damage, I think. Or they basically do a lot of more conventional stuff that we would have. So it gives the idea that they kind of have older technology instead of lasers and that sort of stuff. So their ships are kind of beat up. They look a little bit like Reavers, if you ever watched Firefly, the series. And so their whole society is a republic of tribes, and the tribes are not necessarily friendly with one another, but they have these elders that they worship, and it's a lot of kind of indigenous themes go through the Minmatar enterprise, or the Minmatar Republic. So they are basically the warriors, the Klingons, and they make up for their technology with a ferocity of fighting. And what does that mean for EVE Online? Well, if you were a PvPer, kind of serious about PvP, and especially kind of solo stuff, you wanted to lean over to Minmatar ships because they were fast and they could deal a good amount of damage. And they were versatile as far as your defenses. You could either shield tank them or you could armor tank them. So what that meant for PvPers was when somebody came across you, they wouldn't know what you had. It was a way of hiding your techniques better. In contrast, if you're fighting someone like Caldari, you know that their ships are going to be shield tanked, and so you know how to get through that. You know what's coming at you because it'll be either kinetic weapons or missiles. And if you're fighting Galente, you have the same thing. You know it's basically going to be armor tanked, and they're going to throw drones at you or rails or blasters. So you know what's coming at you. And the same thing again with Amar. You know they're going to have lasers. They have different types of damage, but you know it's going to be lasers. And those are usually stronger for electromagnetics, EM. So you can defend against that a bit better. And those Amarian ships are almost always tanked with armor as well. And so the idea is the other three races, you kind of knew what to expect. If you saw a ship and you knew the race and you knew the size, you could kind of figure out what was coming at you. Minotaur, you never knew what was coming at you. So it was really good for PvP to keep people guessing. And again, they're very fast, which is harder on a pilot because you need to make decisions a lot quicker, which means you need better reflexes overall. So, okay, back to Ushra'Khan, who are role players basically that embrace the lifestyle and fight in faction war against the Amarians. And I'm going to be reading here. As for their foes already existed to fight against Praetoria, Imperialis, Exupetorus. I am just going to trip all over these names because it's a dead language Latin ripoffs. Okay, Imperial Dreams, that's a good one. First Praetorian Guard Corps, and those officially found in CVA of November 30th of the following year. And that's interesting. I didn't know Ushra'Khan was before CVA, but it makes sense. Okay, so what you have, again, you have these Amarians who have Latin names because they're trying to mimic the Holy Roman Empire kind of thing. And then on the other side, you have the Klingons, and that's kind of what the faction war looks like in the southern parts of the map. At that time, the war waged in Empire space, and especially for those groups in Molden Heath, which is a Minmatar area. Uli, which is a system that was the center of New Eden for a while, was the trade center of New Eden, not Jeddah. The Throne Worlds, Uli, Molden Heath trade route was important. And that's interesting. That is an old trade route that all goes to Uli, which is basically not only the center of New Eden politically, because that's where Concord resided, but there was also, everybody wants to go to the center, the big city. And when it was decided that it was Uli, that's where the trade hubs were. And that's for the first part of EVE Online, the first few years, at least in 2003, 2004, that was where the center of economic activity was. Later, that shifted as Jeddah became a really good spot for beginners because a lot of people were born right near there in the Caldari area. And also, it had an amazing amount of missions for people to run. And so wherever people are running missions, they're going to need equipment. They need more ammo. They need more fuel. They need more, they need replacement ships and that sort of stuff. So the market follows the players that are doing the missions. They're doing the repetitive missions all the time. And so Jeddah started to have a lot more commerce going on there. And plus it had good access to other empires except Amar. And then later they put a bridge in from Caldari to Amar, and that really kind of sealed Jeddah as the main trade hub for the game, which it remains today. In fact, for the first time ever, CCP is expanding the trade hub into a proper, unique station, which is much bigger than other stations. So they really embraced Jeddah as the trade hub for the game. I'm going to pause for a second while I get up Twitch so I can see what you guys are asking. Oof, there is nobody watching today, but thank you guys. No questions. Okay, and so let's go on here. So there's a little bit of history in that, talking about Uli and how that was the center, and there was a three worlds Uli Molden Heath trade route, which is very interesting because that means that there was a lot of trade going into Molden Heath, which is really a dead area unless you're in faction war these days. So it's nice. Okay, here we go. Concord alliances didn't exist yet. Following the early 2004 Kumak controversy, most of Minmatar role players' corps decided to form the People's Republic of Minmatar government with its council and Friends of Matar Strategic Alliance. And that has a link, so you can check that out. We'll check that out in a minute. By the way, it says that Concord didn't exist yet, and it didn't exist until the Kumok controversy. I'm not 100% sure on the 2004 Kumok controversy, but it definitely was probably players that were wrecking stuff that required an answer, and so Concord was invented to answer whatever players were doing at the time. I do know that there were no gate guns in LowSec until LowSec gates were camped so hard that CCP needed to do something, so they invented guns on these LowSec transition points, or the gates, to be able to kind of ward off people who were sitting there ganking all the time. So players have evolved this game through their actions, and CCP's reactions to players has created a lot of the stuff that you take for granted now. Oops, I tapped into the propaganda there. Okay, clashes between Friends of Matar and CVA would increase in the early dawn of EVE Online. And that is true. They were one of the things that was funny when I came to EVE Online, which wasn't until 2008. I'd heard of it since 2005. I've kept tabs on it, but I wasn't willing to just jump into a ship. I needed an avatar, a psychological. It was one psychological step too far. Oh no, the sound is low. Okay. I'll try to speak up. And I'll turn up the mic. So when I did play 2008, it was funny because when I arrived, people would say, like, the best PvPers in this game are actually role players. They're incredibly good. And I think that carries on to today. It's not quite as pervasive as it was before, but our peers in EVE Online are also some of the best pilots. And that's been the case for a long, long time. And some of the best pilots might flirt with RP, but they're not necessarily hardcore RP. So it's a little bit different. The ties between, I'm reading again, the ties between Minmatar groups became stronger during mid-2004, the Jovian Artifacts event, which saw the return of Oracle of the People's Front of Minmatar from Curse to help the war effort. So the Jovian Artifacts event is probably something that was put on by CCP or the players early on. There was a lot of player events to give the world some breath of life. That kind of thing, it changed forms over the years, but at the beginning it was very much hang-cranked CCP getting in there and doing a thing, as opposed to what you might see these days. Okay, reading again. All those events led to the creation of Ushra'Khan, the 25th of November. Wow, that was the other day. Oh, that's today, isn't it? No, that was yesterday. Yes, we sent them a happy birthday through Twitter. So I'll read that again. All those events led to the creation of Ushra'Khan, the 25th of November, 2004. And now the oldest surviving Concord Alliance of New Eden. The forum announcement describes the gathering of the tribes and the creation of the alliance. And there's a link there. This was the beginning of a long history fought for in the region of Providence during 5 years, then for a decade in the henceforth faction war Bleaklands, Devoid, Metropolis regions. I added regions there. Those are all regions of space where faction war exists in the south. Even if they don't exist anymore and were removed from the game, Unity Station and Kurashal's Defiance Station will always be part of history. The war for Providence raged for 5 years. Its feats won't be forgotten. Past history remains history and memory. So what the author is saying there is, for 5 years, Ushra'Khan, the Minmatar group, player group, and CVA, the Amarian group, fought in Providence because, of course, that is where the slaves were, and the Minmatar were coming to save their countrymen. So they were, or tribalmen. So they were fighting in Providence to control the area to extract their slaves. That's the RP version of events. But basically, it's a region that is lawless, and it has been player tamed by the Amarian group, CVA and others, and they were called the Pravi holders, the holders of land, the holders of slaves, that sort of thing. So that's where the war was for 5 years, and it went back and forth. I do remember the end of that. Unfortunately, I believe it was NC Dot, who I'm no longer with, but yeah, it was NC Dot that might have, well, it was actually AAA that knocked him out. NC Dot came later and knocked him out again, and then again after that, and then Pandemic Legion did. So anyway, Providence has really been in the hands of the Amarian player group, CVA, for most of its known history. But there have been exceptions, as I listed. All right, I'll read a little bit more, and then I will copy and paste this into the show notes or something. Ushra'Khan died several times. The closest call, of course, was 2012 when the Alliance CEO, Tempest, announced the disbanding of the Alliance. This could have been the end of an RP alliance lost without purpose in the new and ever-changing nullsec politics. But factional warfare became its new home. Now, keep that in mind. That's an interesting twist there. They used to fight each other without any faction war. They were fighting before faction war even existed. And when in 2012, that was kind of the height of, I think, nullsec, 2012 through 2014. A lot of players were really getting involved in high sec. Before, it was a kind of an exclusive area where you had to really work your way into nullsec to survive there. And then I think test probably was the beginning of it. Right, because test was open to anybody who was a part of Reddit. And so it allowed a lot of people to get involved in nullsec just right off the bat. And then you had the cleaned up version of test, which is Brave. And those were the groups that were recruiting a lot of people into nullsec. So nullsec, the floodgates really opened to nullsec for new players. They were able to get into that area of space that usually was reserved for players that were much more experienced and able to fight in those areas. But some people say those big groups were great. I think they're controversial. They were good at some things and bad at others. But one of the things they did do is open the floodgates to all these new players to go right into nullsec. So what happened is a lot of the, I think by then faction war had started. It started in 2008, but it was not that great. You can see that by a graph that we put up the other day. Let's see if I still have it. That faction war just kind of limped along when it first launched. It was a little bit of a novelty, not really getting a lot of traction. And it wasn't until 2012 they did a faction war revamp that really launched it into popularity. Before it used to be, well, I guess around that time people would go there to make money. But again, faction war before that didn't really exist. So what he's saying is that instead of getting sucked up, CVA and Ushra'Khan getting sucked into nullsec and their politics, they actually went into faction warfare, which makes a lot of sense for them just thematically. But that's where their players devoted their time, and they resisted kind of being a part of these big groups. Yeah, faction war was about PvP. It's Dunk Dinkle. Hello, Dunk. He says faction war in those days was about PvP, not making ISK. And that's probably true. I actually only played faction war when it first came out for a little while. And it just had so many limiting factors that I stopped playing it. But I do know that when an alliance would basically get evicted from nullsec, one of the things that they would do to rehabilitate themselves is to go into faction war. And I think that was to make money, so that the players could make some money without territory, because they didn't have territory. Test did it, or Dreadit did it. The corporations in Test. Nulli Segunda did it, and other groups did it as well. It was kind of where you went to make money after you lost your space. All right, well, that's Ushra'Khan. There's more to read. I will probably see if I can get an article up on Talking in Station so we can really celebrate this 15-year anniversary for the Alliance Ushra'Khan, which is a great feat. One of the oldest groups in the game. Actually, the oldest. They predate Stain Empire. Wow, I did not know that. I know CVA was old as well. I didn't know that Ushra'Khan was first. There's some great names here. Huzzah Federation, remember them from Alliance tournaments. Star Fraction, that was a big alliance with a really charismatic leader. We may interview on the show. He said he'd do it, but we haven't contacted him since. And then you have Red Alliance and Razor, and these are the big guys that were around a long time ago. But before them all is Ushra'Khan, and that's 15 years of not consecutive, but 15 years of being in alliance. So congratulations to them. That's a really cool thing. Happy birthday, Ushra'Khan, 15 years old. Okay. Well, if you guys haven't heard, the big deal right now is the what's the name of the new one? There's a new dreadnought out, Triglavian dreadnought, and it's just got ridiculous damage, 24,000 HP damage, and I think those numbers are wrong. Like, they can't be right. So look for some quick changes to the Zenitra. There it is. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Delana. Nice to see you. So something's wrong with the TQ damage. Hello, who's a fish? Wow, look at all these people. Where are you guys? You guys want to jump in here with me and say hi? We can talk about Eve Echoes. It's really crazy that the stuff that was on test server for the Zenitra is different than the stuff that's on Tranquility. Usually they screw the stats up so people can't predict how effective that ship's going to be. But what's very interesting this time is the stats are really good in Tranquility. It's going to be a ship, according to one of our AFCs, that people are going to be required to have. It's going to take a year because so few of them are going to be created within these first months. But it's going to be a required ship because this is going to be a structure destroyer. How's it going, Delana?
Hey, how's it going?
Good. Oh, I think you fell on your microphone.
I found it.
I do that too at work. I have my microphone in a drawer, so as soon as I log in, people can hear me opening my drawer and scrambling for the mic. How are you doing? And something I wanted to ask you about is Eve New Orleans.
Yeah. So we have the dates set. Officially, they're May 22nd to 24th. It's right before Memorial Day. We have a Discord server set up. We have finally a block reserved for the hotel. We've actually been having some technical issues with the discount code, but there is one, and we are working on it. And it's available right now, and it should be ironed out within like the next day, if not today.
Hold on a second. I have us in public, which is why our bubbles aren't coming up. So I'm going to drag us to down here. There. Let's see if that works.
There we go.
Did it do anything? No. Our had some technical issues, but we were able to straighten them out. Unfortunately, the bubbles aren't working today, and I am unable to grab those. They need to be done through a different person. The perils of working in Macintosh.
Yikes.
Yeah, in a what do they call this? A Windows world. That's hard being a Mac.
Yeah, I know how that is.
Anyway, how are you doing? So congratulations on getting that at least established. Who's the guy that's working on it with you?
His name is Codiz. And he actually runs like his own anime convention here in Louisiana, so he has a lot of experience with this. So he's doing a lot of that technical work, getting on the phone with the hotels and stuff. Because that's not my forte. I feel like I get on a phone with people, then I'm like, and then I don't know what I'm trying to do. But he knows how to nail that down.
So what's your forte? I think I know, but
well, I mean, Well, for one thing, the icon for our server is actually designed by Rick Javix.
Hmm.
So I would have loved to get my own ideas, but I had some ideas for that. But I mean, I'm helping with brainstorming, like the additional events, because I mean it's not an official CCP thing, so we're just gonna be like going around looking at stuff and eating and drinking. um, so some of that, we're gonna obviously make some swag for it, and yeah.
Hmm. Well, I also know, yeah, you're a graphic designer. You've done some stuff for TIS and, of course, Horde and also for this. And you live in the area, right? So you're going to be there.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah.
Hmm. So what do you think? Like, are you going to get? You think people are going? There's great interest among people I know, but what do you think?
I mean, just judging from our server, like we have over 100 people in the server right now, and I mean it's kind of like Facebook events. Like people might be interested, but
Hmm.
only like a certain number of them will actually go. But like even just like if a fraction of 100 people go, like it would be huge. Like,
Yeah,
and I'm sure like in the months coming up to it, we'll have even more people joining. And I might post a link. I think you have like the meetups
yeah.
sub channel somewhere in Talking Station, so I'll post a link to it.
We're going to work with. Let's see, what's it called? Eve Meet. We're trying to work something out right now. Uh, Something more than just putting a link for them. Here they are. Where are they? Eve Meet. I'm not sure that's it. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so we want to work with them a little closer so that we can tie our channel into them. So all the people that follow Talking in Stations can get funneled into meetups and go meet people in their area when it occurs. But we will definitely have your information in Talking in Stations at some point. We'll publicize it as well. So we're very
Oh yeah,
interested
we
in
need
seeing it
to
go well.
yeah, need to get that on there because we need to make sure that people know about.
It's coming fast, right? I mean, that's just a few months away.
Yeah, yeah, because we decided like that would be the best time
Hmm.
because you don't want to be too early and get close to Fan Fest, but you don't want it to be too late in the summer because it's going to be a sauna. um Avoid
Right.
hurricane season and all that, but then it's like it's still crawfish season, so we're going to do a crawfish boil. So we decided like we just gonna nail down this date. It's probably one of the better times of the year to do it, and let's just go ahead and just get it done.
Yeah, it's funny. You think about the when's it okay for our area because there's certain times you don't want to go there. I'm sure the places that are closer to water have the bigger problems with that. You know, and also East Coast gets so humid, it's like just uncomfortable. So you have to pick the best time for your area, and that might sit right on top of some other event or when people are busy or whatever. So anyway, good. So it's again, it's in. Did you say sorry, March or May?
May. It's
May. Okay.
May 22nd, 24th. It's like the weekend right before Memorial Day. So we're thinking some people might have the extended weekend anyway, so they'd have some extra days if they want to stay longer because I mean the city has so much to offer to look at, to see and do, to like all these restaurants, all these bars, all these places like it's going to be a blast.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we look forward to that so that we have plenty of time. I thought it was in March, and I thought, oh, that's just around the corner. It'll come fast.
No, that's too close to Mardi Gras.
Yeah. Different party. All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate you coming by and telling us about that. We'll talk about that a lot more as it comes up. And I will see if I can go there. I'm not 100% sure I can make it because I want to try to make FanFest as well. But if I were to choose another place, that would be it for sure.
Yeah, that's the only thing we see, like, it's a little bit close to FanFest, and, like, I'm gonna go to FanFest. But
Hmm.
then I also have the advantage of, like, I don't have to go very far to New Orleans.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, but it's like some people, like, they couldn't really make FanFest anyway, but, like, if especially if they're American, it'd be a lot easier for them to get to New Orleans, and a lot of people have never even been to New Orleans
Yeah.
before.
I haven't. My boss is from New Orleans, so he goes all the time, and we have crawfish boils at work. He brings back the
Oh, wow.
ingredients from New Orleans.
Oh, perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and so we do that like 3 or 4 times a year. But he's always going back for either the jazz festival or to visit his family and watch some football. He's a big fan of the Saints.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, and also for Mardi Gras, he's always going to Mardi Gras.
Oh yeah, you never miss that.
All right, cool. So what's something else I was going to cover? Oh yeah, we're slipping into the holiday season here. We're right around the corner is Thanksgiving, just a couple days. And then you have Black Friday and Cyber Monday and the whole week of sales, sales, sales. So see what goes on there. There might be some good stuff for EVE Online given out. And then we're going to go into December, where we're going to do a lot of shows that revolve around wrapping up the year and what happened this year and trying to put things in perspective. We're going to talk about uh, just the track of events. We're going to talk about the most influential people, the most influential groups. As we do, we'll vote on that. We'll put that up there. And so look for that. That's more the New Year's. But we're also going to have our Christmas party and then our New Year's party. So look for all those kinds of festive shows that happen at the end of the year for Talking In Stations. Okay, so let me take a quick look. What have you been doing, Delana? Anything going on?
Um, not really. Um, and in terms of what?
Oh, I don't know. What's Horde doing?
Um,
I don't know. You're on open
yeah,
comms a lot, right? Is that where your time's
yeah,
going?
yeah, yeah. Um,
How can you hang with those guys? Don't they raise hell? Or you're fine with that?
yeah. Apparently, I've been like, people see like, I make a lot of reaction faces to them, so they're like, Delana is all of us in the chat.
Yeah, you're the
Whenever,
reaction
because like I
section.
never get nearly as drunk as they do, so I just get to be like the face of the reactions in chat. But it's a lot of fun. It's a
Yeah, you're channeling everybody else. It's hilarious. So you enjoy being on there then?
yeah, it is a lot of fun. Yeah.
People can catch that Friday nights. It's a drinking show uh, on INN, Twitch, and I think you all know it. If you're watching the show or listening to it, you probably know that show as well. There's also another show on Sundays called the Pew Pew Show. It's all in Spanish, but it's about EVE Online. And it's the same kind of a thing with a lot less drinking, a lot more EVE Online, and a lot more um, going through technology. And it's a nice little like if you know Spanish, I recommend it. It's a nice little show for an hour on Sunday where they talk about technology and they talk about the game and stuff like that. So check both those shows out. Okay, we are actually going to already go into a raid because I want to make these shows really short. So we're going to dish you off to Ashtarothi there. He is doing some of the conduits, I believe, or something new. He's looking for some pieces to the new dreadnoughts, so you guys will enjoy watching that. And I am going to go to work, right? We have day jobs.
Yeah. I just happen to be on my lunch break right now, so this was perfect.
I know. I think your lunch break is, did it start 30 minutes ago or?
Yeah, yeah, dude.
Okay. So whenever we go over 9 o'clock in the morning here, then we have a chance of seeing you pop up.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Hey, thanks everybody. Everybody that rated from Ron's channel, thanks very much. Sorry, we're just wrapping up and moving out, but here is Ashtarothi. Enjoy that.
Thanks, dudes.
All right, have a good night. We'll see you soon.